Thank you. So, Paul Bohm, Chair for today of the Land Use Working Group Municipal Office Consolidation Subcommittee is December 17th at 10 a.m. I'll call this meeting to order. I see we have our members here, Tracy Morano
Yep, present.
and Mary Hartman.
Here.
So we're all here, plus others welcome here. So I have a pretty busy agenda. Let me just, well, first let's start with public comment. On, I mean, there's so much on the agenda. What comment on anything you want that's not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. We have minutes to approve. And have you seen the minutes? I made an edit to the minutes. Did you see those edits?
No, no.
Okay, let me see if I can just share.
Did I do the minutes?
You did do the minutes.
Oh, good. Okay. No, I didn't see the edits.
Here it is. Okay, I'm sharing now. Do you see it
Not yet.
Almost.
coming?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. The only thing I did, you talked about the list of, we reviewed the list of options. I just listed the five options well, the four options that we have been considering, and then we added the consolidation, the building in a new building at Ripley's site at Tracy's suggestion. So there are five options. I just felt we ought to list them in the minutes because I hadn't seen them anywhere else. So that's the only
Yep.
change I made.
That's great.
Let's change the meeting date here, which was incorrect. Okay.
That's right. Okay, good. Yeah, that was good. Okay.
So motion to approve.
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh, I'll second.
Okay. All in
I'm at
favor?
78 hours.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Stop that sharing. Okay. We have a few things on the agenda. I did want to kind of jump a little bit because Megan has asked for our input on the scope of work. So let me just put that up and then we'll start discussing that. Uh, okay, so the scope of work. I just made some notes for myself up here, and just to kick off the discussion, I think Megan, if you're there, it's a very comprehensive scope of work for the purpose of looking at these four sites. The question that I had, and which is top of my mind for this subcommittee, since we have a deadline of the end of January to do our first recommendation for phase one, we are going to need information along these lines, and which will probably not be coming out of this study. This study does have uses beyond phase one, right? I think there are uses for phase two. There are uses for actual development of these sites. There's uses for perhaps the master plan for MCI. There's probably uses for a potential town warrant meeting because all those details are really important. The question that I had is, what do we need when? And I want to open that up because
I think
we
I
have,
need the first page and I need it. Okay, when we were
go
putting
ahead.
together our list of what data we needed, what I really need is the market value for the pieces of land that we're talking about, possibly vacating or possibly occupying. And market value, we use the word appraisal a lot, but maybe that was the wrong word. Maybe I just need a rough order of magnitude market value for these based on two different zoning assumptions. And I think, so a lot of this information I think will be really useful if we decide to recommend, for example, one of these sites. We need to certainly get a lot more detail and more precise information about their market value. But at this stage, order of magnitude would be perfectly adequate and help us meet our deadline, which is January 31st. So, I'm glad that the thought was put into this, and we're like you said earlier, Paul, we're probably going to need this down the road. But for now, I'm wondering, could we get market values at two different zoning assumptions for the pieces of land that are in play?
And that's sort of it's in here. It's a combination. There's a lot here, but it's a combination of, I just had it, of
What
item
page?
C, market valuation, residual land value, and the zoning piece, which is the zoning scenario modeling. So,
Yeah. So I
it,
guess my question to Megan is, can we get that, or can can we get that in a timely manner, or should we do something else to get to quantify some of these options?
Well, I think we have some rough numbers in order of magnitude that Judith has worked on, and there was a meeting with the co-chairs and with some commercial brokers in town, and like we have some order of
Yes,
magnitude.
you're right. We have some,
So
and
I'm
I've
trying
seen
to
that.
figure out
Yeah.
how how to get a different how to get more than that, but not too much. And I think that if we are really looking at like how many housing units can we get here, you can't ignore some of the things here like the wetlands and other constraints. So that is why we tried to dig into a little bit of how are we going to get the real number. Um, so yeah, I'm curious to hear. I think the work that I'm trying to do here is translate these conversations into a real product and trying to meet the needs of the working group and the subcommittee. So like this is a crack at trying to answer the questions of how much could we get for it, how many housing units could we get for these under different zoning. But as we dig into it, there are a lot of components, and
You're right.
so,
You're right. So, but I'm not sure we need to dig into it that detailed at this point.
but
So,
more detailed than what we already have, I guess. Like that's
yes.
where I'd like a little more guidance.
Well, okay, so you're right. Judith put together something that was very broad brush, but there were some holes in that. For example, I don't think we looked at, I don't know, what would be the value of Peabody if we changed the zoning, for example. I don't re, and right now I don't know where the holes are, but
but
I do know that we put down a list of what we needed. So, I'm basically looking for market values under seven different scenarios, and some of that is in Judith's, and some of it isn't. So, um,
so Mary, I was looking at this. I said we really need this as a confirmation on what we're doing and what you have done specifically in your modeling. For example, you have looked at Peabody and you've looked at the available land and you've discounted that based on how much of that land is available for housing. And you looked at two different zoning assumptions and based on valuation of
no, no,
housing.
no, not for every one of these sites. No.
No, no, but you've done that for Peabody.
Yeah, but I didn't do
Okay.
it for like Ripley, and I didn't do it for.
But I know, but couldn't you do that? Couldn't we do that without a consultant input for Ripley and
Good
for
question. Yeah,
Uh,
good question.
Well, I keep going back to this appraisal, and I know that it's like probably the thorn in everyone's side that I keep on talking about the appraisal. But I do think that I mean, I don't know if there's money for this, and I know it's not going to work with the January timeline, but how are we really going to determine what each piece of property can absolutely have? I like personally, I don't have that expertise, right? And I feel like we need some with that expertise, and I think it's beyond what the town employees are capable of doing too. And that's just, because I mean, maybe they have a better understanding of it, but I do think that I hate using consultants, but I kind of feel like we need more expertise before we can make recommendations and decisions.
and I agree. We do need this in detail, but the question is what do we
Yeah.
need? So our phase one recommendations, I'm going to call them as, our first crack at a recommendation. We're going to rank things and we're going to put things in order. We'll talk about how to do that. But I looked at what Mary has done, and let's just review that, stepping back. Mary has taken Peabody, 75% of that available land, and has cut that land into two zoning, half acre zoning, being two different zoning. And we put houses on there and we valued those houses. And then we basically summed up that valuation, and that had a range of several million to 9.6 million. And that was sort of a value. I thought that was a value to a potential developer if we were to sell that. If we wanted to translate, because a developer,
Yes.
assuming all these sites
Yep.
are looking at housing, we've come up with a rough cut on how a developer might look at this. Now, is it
Exactly.
an official market value appraisal? No, but is it good enough for what we need to do here in terms of articulating the economics of the various options? What parcels become available? What's the value versus operational constraints, et cetera. So I'm wondering,
That's that's
could
exactly
could
right.
could we do that now and let this run? Because we do need all this information. I mean, I look at D, for example. We absolutely need this information if we're going to develop the area. We need to know wetlands and and there are other things we need at a higher level. I think we do need a demolition cost estimate. We do need what it would cost to put a new building in, because we have two of our options. We're building new buildings, right? We don't have any estimates for those yet. So I'm just wondering how much of this we need by the end of January, unless our co-chairs, one of whom has his hand raised, is going to give us an extension, which I don't think we want because we've
No.
been talking
Yeah.
quite publicly about the phase one being completed by the end of January. So that's the tension here. How do we get the information we need by, it's not even the end of January, by mid-January, because we need
Yes.
to write this up. Sven.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, words matter. So I think looking back to what we requested from the town, I think by using the word appraisal, we confuse people. So appraisal is a very specific meaning, and that's, I think, in none of the ones we wanted to have what appraisal means. We want to have a market value assessment in a
Yes.
certain way. Yeah.
Yep.
So just be
Yep.
careful when you use the word appraisal because
Yep.
that has a very technical, very specific meaning. So I think we the co-chairs and town personnel, Megan and co, we had a discussion last week to clarify that we are not really looking for technical appraisal, but market value assessment. So that's one. The other thing, definitely clear through all work streams that there will be for all of the different options that the work streams are narrowing down to, there will be more information needed down the road. Um, so you have to think about what is the information you need critically for the end of January timeframe we are talking about. And I just have to imagine at a certain point we have to look back to the select board and say, okay, if you work on, let's say, building a new fire station, or if you work on the consolidation, really, these are the options and these are the recommendations that the current group thinks of. But the devil is in the detail, and there need to be more detailed analysis be done because we in that time frame we got from for the land use working group, we can only play on a very high level. So think about this as what do you need to have in place, what you can work with, and I think is what we are looking for here is more a market value assessment, not an appraisal.
Exactly. Yeah, we used the wrong word. And
Well, that's helpful. And I think it's still it's very stressful when you're thinking about, oh, we're making all these recommendations without all without all the information. We're using very high level information. And so know that we will be doing more work later, or the net or whoever takes this later will be doing all that detailed work. That's helpful.
okay,
So,
Stephen, we okay with me going ahead with the model and making um, some order of magnitude assumptions around, for example, the value of Ripley, for example, if we were to build new there, or if we were to leave Ripley and make that available for housing, say. Are we okay with that?
I'm okay then. Just remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to, we have 5 scenarios. We're trying to do an economic analysis, and it's basically pros and cons versus status quo. It's going to cost the town X dollars to do nothing. And what is the benefit? We're talking about benefits here. The valuation are all benefits, right? To balance against operating costs. So I think doing that, ballparking that is going to point our recommendation in the right direction.
Okay.
Let's,
Tracy, are you okay with that? I mean, I'll do that if we're okay with that. And Sven, I'd like to know what, as a co-chair, if at this point you think that's what we need at this point in order to move forward.
Unless one of you has a significant concern to say there's something you not feel comfortable when you start ranking your options.
Which we're not at that point yet. I guess like the concept of ballparking, I'm always uncomfortable with because I've been down this road on different projects in the town. And I just don't want numbers to get out there that we're like, this is an absolute. People have to understand that we're making a lot of assumptions, none of it with like, I mean, we're looking at people that work in real estate in Concord. We're not looking for a professional consulting firm. So I think we just have to be really clear that we're ballparking and making a lot of assumptions.
Is
oh,
there
absolutely,
is there a
absolutely.
middle path? Is there a middle path where we could that I could write down some of the assumptions that I'm making, and without going down the appraisal at this point, I could talk to a real estate person. Sven, maybe you could get us in touch and kind of just bounce them off. Am I right as far as what a double A zoned house would sell for? Or am I, because I know you and Judith did that, but like I said, there's some holes in that data.
So I think we can just get the group again together. We had the real real estate people when we had the first discussion around
Yeah.
it,
Yep.
to just double check that. I think that could be one. The other one is, Megan, you listened to that and we had a discussion last week. Is what do you think is can be done on more kind of a, say, assessment, or let's say market estimate
Yeah.
feedback from sources you have.
Could you do that, Megan?
Sorry, I guess I'm a little bit confused. Like we put together the scope to collect the data that we thought the group is looking for. We do have some information from a high level when the co-chairs met with brokers, our economic vitality manager who's on the call. So we have that, and then we have like a more detailed review. And I'm trying to understand what the action items are from this conversation about how we can support like the gaps that you're looking for. Do you mind?
So Megan, the question here is, looking at this scope, what was tried out there? Do you think you get a result of that scope by the third week of January or the middle of January?
That might be hard to do. I don't have confirmation on the details of the scope yet. So I have not looked at pricing or talked to any firms about this. I'm trying to get a sense of, are we all in agreement about what we need? So I haven't done those
I think we
steps.
I thought we had moved away from this particular and said this is something we need further on, but for the short term, we need some order of magnitude for the 4 parcels that were in the 4 parcels that are under consideration, and we've moved away from the word
So,
appraisal into more of just a market value.
so let's
We're
let's
not,
let's
yeah,
let's do this here, just for the interest of this group, so that you're working. You continue to work best on your current estimates and framework you're doing. Um, if you think is there anything, and in parallel, the co-chairs will work with Megan to get this information at a certain point available. So even if it's coming in February, it helps for the final report and it helps to narrow things down. I think we should do some of that work that is here just in the end for the final report to have a more validated information. But at the
okay.
moment, we have to
Yep.
get to the point. So from your perspective, if you look at that document, is there something materially missing, or you're saying this is overboard, you don't need it to be done? So that would help Megan to finalize the scope, so that we can do that in parallel. You do your work on the order of magnitudes you mapped out so far, and then we have potentially February, we have more concrete numbers.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we are going to need this information, but we don't need all this detail. And I think Mary, let's use the word ballparking. I know.
Sorry.
Don't use
Well,
that word.
well,
Well,
it's the
but I
Order
think
of
it's
magnitude.
important to use it, but in a way, it's important to really be clear about this because I do think we're asking a lot of our town employees to get all this work done when they all clearly have a different day job that they're doing. And it is going to take more time. It might not fit into the timeline that we have. But, I heard Megan say something about, reaching out to other people. So I think the scope is right. I think the scope for what she prepared is right. I think the timeline is probably something that we have to consider. We have to consider what we're able to get done and when. And maybe we have to make recommendations with just ballparking, but I just don't want misinformation to get out there as this committee thinks it's going to cost X amount of money and then us not to be, we just have to be transparent about it. Because order of magnitude to me doesn't sound the same as ballparking. Ballparking makes you feel a little bit better.
Now, for me, it's different. Ballparking for me is
Okay.
cheers speaker.
Yeah.
Then call it educated estimates. And you're right.
Yeah.
I think
Okay. Great. I like
Okay,
that too.
okay, then I'll do that, okay? And I still do need some information, and I'll do my best to try to find out, where I can fill those gaps. Like, for example, Ripley. How many acres are we talking about at Ripley?
I have some Ripley numbers that are hot off the press for you.
Okay,
I can
great.
share later. Yeah.
Okay, good. And moving costs, I think you were going to help me with that, and I think Russ was going to give me some numbers. So, um, collecting all this information would be in one place would be helpful to me. And like I said, I think I'm going to have to. So, how can you get that to me, Tracy? Can you?
So, well, let me just look at the agenda. Is it on the agenda that I can share that document?
I don't
And then
know.
I can email it to you if I share it,
Well, that's the chair.
Paul.
what document you
I
want?
have a document on Ripley space.
Oh yeah, there's a whole thing on data needs. It's the
Yeah.
last thing on the agenda. Yeah, that covers everything we're talking about.
And if Mary needs to leave early and she wants it earlier, could I move to have it placed on the agenda sooner than later? And then Mary will have it because we'll see it publicly and then I can email it.
Yes, let's do that. I think we're into the discussion of data needs in general. This is the market valuation is one of, I think we're into moving costs. We're into other data needs, which is a good segue to maybe jump the agenda and go to that topic before Mary leaves. So the answer is yes. If you want to share
Okay.
that.
So why don't I just share this document and we'll go through it. And then if there's anything else you need, I'm going to add to it live on the spot so that we can get it. Okay. Let me just find where the document is. Sorry, I'm spatially and visually challenged right now.
I
I
understand.
just, I have the wrong documents up.
I've been there.
Oh.
Mary, before you leave, I do want to get this list of data needs. For example, the new building costs. In your model, we need a number for because two of our options have new buildings being built, right?
They do.
So we need
I need to know the square footage, right? And
right.
then I'll use Judith's number for the cost per building new per
Right.
square foot, as long as I have the space.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see my
Yeah.
document? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
All
good.
right.
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right. So, and I will just say, like, we are deep into school budgets right now. So this is the best we can do for right now, but we can certainly add to it. And now that once we have our budget meeting tonight, so now we have a little bit more time. All right. So I have a list of all the current spaces, and as I understood from Judith, she can do all the office spaces. So what I decided to break them into is specialty spaces. So there's
Yeah.
a square footage associated with all the specialty spaces that we have. Because for lack of a better term, that's all I could come up with. Um, and then the office space needs, I did not attach square footage, but it's just a
Right.
listing of what we have there currently. In terms of future needs, again, if there's additional housing in town, we are going to have future growth needs, but I think that we can calculate out at some point. So these are, I can now share this document with you now that I've shown it publicly. So I'll email it to both you and Paul. And if there's anything else you want from Ripley, I do not have the moving costs yet, but I will get that.
Okay.
And I can hopefully share that with Shannon. I can't guarantee we can do it before the break. And we are very much on break from Tuesday until after New Year's. So if it doesn't happen before probably Friday or Monday, then you won't have it until after New Year's.
Well,
Just
look,
cool.
this is perfect. Let me knit this together with a couple of other things. So, um, at the highest level, we're asking the question, what size building do we need, right?
Mhm.
And so we put together a space matrix, which accounts for all the office space, right? And then
Yeah.
there were program spaces. This
Right.
fills two of those blanks on the program spaces for the schools. And I think there are other information on other program spaces, council on aging, et cetera. So I think putting this all together, Mary, we're going to see what size building we need, which is going to
Exactly. Yep.
address the question of which of the available buildings, plus potential purchase of a new building, plus the building of a new building, what's the size that we need?
Exactly.
That's really important to
Right.
putting it all together. So this is really
Or if we
important.
were going to, purchase an existing building, how much of that would we use? How much of that could we rent out? Yeah, no, you're right. This is good. Good
And then
Right.
information.
in terms of like the office space, I didn't put a total number on that. So I think
No,
that
we have that.
simple
we-
math. Yeah.
We've accounted for that. Remember
Yep.
by giving all the staff, including school staff, 150 square feet. Judith was of the opinion that covers the office and the support functions like huddle spaces and
Mhm.
conference and IT rooms.
Kitchens.
We
Yeah.
just needed this program space, which includes the outdoor. I'm glad you have that outdoor program
Yep. Yep.
space in there. So this is a very big help.
So I'm going to email this now because I've shown the document publicly to both of you, and I'll include Shannon on that. Um, and then we can just use this. And I will get the moving costs. That's the other thing that I owe you. And I think that's all I owed you for now on the schools.
You do, but also I was thinking, Tracy, I was wondering if you could help us with the furniture, fixture, and fit up costs that we'll need to think, because I know you probably know
Yeah.
that from the middle school, right?
Yep. Yep.
So could you give us an estimate? And I don't know the per what, per office, per square foot, something like that, that would
Yeah.
help me quantify that for a new building space or any kind of move. That
Yep. And I think that they can
great.
easily do that in terms of classrooms and office space. Again, the best numbers we have are the Thoreau playground for the outdoor space. And that's like 300,000. So I'll put that together at the end of this document and we'll just add to it.
So moving and I think it's called FP&E or something,
Yep.
whatever.
FF&E. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
So those two data, the moving costs and I'll call it the furnishing costs, those are relevant to all of the options, whether we purchase a new building, whether we put everything in Peabody or Ripley, or build two new buildings.
Yep.
that information would be the same for all of those,
Yeah,
right?
except the do nothing, except the do nothing
So
scenario,
the
right?
do nothing.
Exactly. Okay, good, good.
Um, the other, so do we have, and Judith originally had estimated some renovation cost for a new building, but let's get that separately. But do we have, um, let's say we have a 50,000 square foot building. Can we drop in
Yep.
a new building cost for a municipal building?
I'm sorry.
I'm
Say
just
that again.
wondering, I'm looking at Russ and others, where can we get, once we have a size of a building, let's say 50,000 square feet for new buildings, whether it's in the Ripley site, the Peabody site, or and those are two new building options. Can we come up with a number easily for an estimate for that, Russ?
What kind of building are we putting up? Are we putting up offices? Are we putting a fire station? Are we putting housing?
No, this
How
is
many-
this is municipal group. This is office space plus school program space. So
Right.
we'd be putting school, classrooms, office space, and potentially council, senior program space. So a combination of office space and program
Yeah,
space.
again, we can do that with this, historical square footage cost, which is how we've been doing it up to date. That's where we have our numbers right now. And that's as close as you're going to get unless you have some kind of schematic plan where you actually know square footages, wasted space, site conditions, this, that, and the other thing. It's a huge question. That's why we do planning. We work in the square footage costs based on historical assumptions and similarities, and work from there. And we usually put the finger heavy on the scale when we do that, so no one's shocked. And you get a real number.
Yeah, and this is sustainable construction. This would be a new building with our standards, and I don't know whether
We
we want
have
to
that.
I don't
I
know
think
whether we
we
want
have,
to go ahead.
I think we have that from Judith. And again, it's an order of magnitude and it's looking at a net zero building. And I don't remember the number off the top of my head, and I don't want to say it because it will probably be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we have that. A new building cost and a renovate cost.
And Russ,
Judith provided a couple numbers already.
Yeah, she
Russ,
did.
do you feel like municipal building costs you can compare that to school building costs or no?
Hi.
Uh,
School is totally different than muni.
Totally different. Okay.
Yeah, school's more expensive, but in both cases, we're held hostage to the prevailing wage laws and all the other things that go along with procurement. So it's
Yeah.
always going to be more expensive than a private commercial building.
Private commercial built, yeah.
Typically 20 to 30% more expensive.
Okay, thanks.
So the challenge of this new building is that it's a hybrid, right? We're putting in office space and potentially classroom space in different parts of a new building. So it'll probably be at the upper end of the cost range, I would think.
That's the same as any school program, Paul.
Excuse me?
All the schools have the same program as the school with the education. You have education, business, storage, assembly. They're all hybrid in nature under the code, on the code reviews. So they're all similar uses, just different proportions of each use.
Right. Sven, comment.
Yeah, just do we know because I knew back in California for preschools, the code was not that stringent, like if you start with elementary, middle, and high school. For preschools, it was much easier actually to convert office space into preschool stuff. So we we might overestimate what the requirements for a preschool is.
Well, except for this is public preschool and not a private preschool.
It was the
And
same for in the code.
yeah,
So
it's the same in the code in Massachusetts.
no, I think what I learned in California was the same um, requirement. So I don't know how it's here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and I
Schools are not
The code in
strict-
Massachusetts follows the International Building Code, same as
Yeah.
California. Each state has its own amendments to the building code. California is more strict on fire protection and seismic activities naturally. And here in Massachusetts, there are some amendments to it, but typically there's no more strict rules for preschool than there are for education. They all come under the education subgroup, and that's what you have to design your building to, which really amounts to
I,
fire
I mean, is
protection.
what preschool was less than the other schools. That's only I said. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that IBC only accounts for people less than 50 students or less than 50 people. We would have more than that. So you're under the education. That's sort of designed for home daycares and things like that. But we're in a commercial realm, so we have to go to a higher standard.
So since we're jumping around the agenda, I want to make sure that Megan has what she needs on the scope. What I heard was this group needs to come up with educated estimates in January, which is somewhat independent of what Megan needs to procure in the longer term, which is more solid set of numbers. Eventually, that solid set of numbers is going to be compared with our educated estimates, but the educated estimates are going to be satisfactory for making our recommendations as far as phase one. Is that a good summary of what?
That's a great summary.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Megan, your scope of work is robust and and important, and we're going to use it, but not by the end of January. Megan, go ahead. Megan, your hand is raised, but you're on mute.
Sorry, I just unmuted her. She's been dropping on and off, so she's been losing co-host abilities.
Okay. There she
Hi
is.
guys,
Hi.
sorry about that. Yes, I'm hearing that there's agreement that this work is needed. We will proceed with procuring this work. I am hearing like, is this level of detail needed? And if there are if some people think that certain elements are not needed, I'd be happy to have that conversation if there's specific feedback to the draft. But you're also saying that to meet the next kind of milestone in the project, you'll be looking at data that's been collected and analyzed through multiple sources, including, I think, the meeting that the co-chairs had with some brokers in the community. And I think that there's a spreadsheet that everyone has access to with a lot of that data. So we'll make sure, we can refresh and send that out again. But there has been some work, I think, done by Judith on some high level estimates. Are we okay there?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
I have one question on one of the buildings. So Church Street, Harvey Wheeler. So Peabody, Ripley, and Kais Road, we sort of know what the potential disposition of those sites are, right?
Yep.
Buildings come down, they're sold for housing. Maybe that'll change for commercial, but that's one of the big assumptions. 55 Church Street and Harvey Wheeler is a little bit different. So I'm just wondering how the market valuation of that is going to jive, because we're not. I don't know. So,
That's a great question, Paul. I think that's for me one of the holes I was talking about earlier that I don't know how to value. If we were to move the Council on Aging and the Rec Department and all those people up to a consolidated site, I don't know how to value. I don't know how to quantify what we've unlocked there.
Well, I think the Harvey Wheeler building is historic, so there are some considerations there. As for the other parcels, we would be looking at multifamily housing, I think, under a few different scenarios. You could look at it under MBTA community zoning, or you could look at it as a planned development unit, which means different things depending on what the base zoning is. And so the neighborhood around 55 Church is zoned residential C. And so if you were to do a planned residential development on a residential C, that would yield more units than if it were on B or A or AA, So you could do some analysis on looking at the square footage, saying, okay, if we're just looking at 55 Church, not Harvey Wheeler, like, I don't know. It's like you kind of get out what you put into it. Like, are we looking at all the acres, imagining that there's nothing here, or are we considering that Harvey Wheeler would likely stay because it's historic, and so we're just looking at 55 Church and we're just looking at housing there? we can do some estimates, and our planning team has started to do that. But we can share what we have. But I think it's like understanding the assumptions that we're working on across the board makes a big difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm going to leap to an assumption on those properties. My assumption is that those buildings remain intact and that they may be renovated and they were converted to condos or apartment. So we're not raising, we're not, and this is the middle of, I don't think we'd be knocking stuff down and rebuilding. We'd be using the existing structures and getting
Well,
value out of the existing structures for housing.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
maybe we should talk about that because I think I
yeah.
agree with about the Harvey Wheeler building. We're not going to raise that, but or even convert it. I don't. But I think that the Church Street building has more possibilities.
Well,
Uh,
and that's in the detailed options, the market value options that Megan's doing, the
yeah, but
different
I
options.
need it now. But okay, I'm sorry, I'm back to. But
Yeah.
for the modeling that I'm doing, if we assume that we're going to consolidate the Council on Aging and the Rec Department and the other functions that are housed at 55 Church and the Carousel School at another facility, what value have we unlocked there? And so, I'm going to have to noodle this through and talk with some people as far as what's a reasonable thing to assume as far as what are the possibilities there.
Well, maybe the three of us should just state what our assumption is for this report. And it may not be the final assumption, but I'm sure there are different opinions on that. So, but I think the three of us need to say what's our planning assumption here for phase one.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I mean, um, I mean, the safe assumption would be the buildings stay intact and then converted to condos or apartments. So there's real estate value. So it's not, I'm saying they're probably not rental units. We probably sell, but it could be rented or it could be sold. I mean, we have to decide on what your planning assumption is for your modeling. I don't
Hey,
know.
Paul,
Yeah.
I would not put a caveat like nothing's going to be torn down. If there's a building that you want to save, you say that. Developers aren't going to look at these buildings and think if there's a huge ROI on it for them if they're stuck with four walls. Harvey Wheeler should not be torn down. That's
No.
Yep.
just the way it should. That's a great, that could be reused for a lot of stuff. 55 Church,
Yep.
I look at 55 Church as a developer, would look at it. I see anywhere from 50 to 100 units over there if we utilize that parking lot and some alternate egress that I've been thinking about. We have to think like the developers. We got to maximize our return on our ownership investment if we divest properties. We got to get the most bang for the buck because you only do it once if you're getting rid of properties. So
Okay. I mean, that's good. That's aggressive and that's equally valid assumption. But to Mary's point, we have to come down on some, unless we want to have two different options for that. I don't want to change our five option scenario right
Well,
now.
and I guess, Russ, you said 50 to 100 units at 55 Church. So where are cars going to go that are associated with those units?
I'm not going to put too much out in a public meeting right now,
Yeah.
but there's ways to make it happen. And we could have substantially more units there too, depending on zoning.
Mm.
Ownership-based units, actually, not rental.
So I could get you some high level counts if we're just looking at 55 Church. What would be possible, like not Harvey Wheeler, because like if we're assuming, thinking about it that way,
Yep.
what would the acreage yield for under a couple different zoning scenarios for a number of units? That would not consider keeping the building. Like that would not be you could look at it that way too. But if you wanted to say like how many units could you have just looking at 55 Church if it was on MBTA? How many unit and this is not considering kind of all these other elements. We're not getting into a circulation discussion and like all these that will be thought through in the scope, but for right now, we can just like tell you like a number based on that, if that's
That would be
helpful.
great. That would be really
Yeah.
helpful. Can we
Good.
have that in time for our January 31
Yes,
deadline?
yeah, I have it, but I have it including the Harvey Wheeler parcel. And so I just need to go back to Elisa and ask to just do the 55 church and run those numbers.
Great, great. That would be great.
But knowing that it's not like thinking about how much they would like, there's other factors into development,
I understand. No, I understand. I
that
do.
could
We've
change.
got we've got the demolition costs. We've got a lot of other costs that
Yeah.
are also in the model.
Okay.
But the missing piece is how many units could we put there and how much anyway.
I'll get you a couple of scenarios of how many units for the 55 per church parcel.
Thank you. That's
Absolutely.
great. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of your outline, Megan, is that you could, if you had that all information, you could take it all the way into development planning, right? But we're not doing development planning. We're doing 3 steps before that, and which might lead to development planning if that's the way
Right.
we want
Yeah,
to
I
go.
think and Mimi drafted this, so credit to her for her work on this document. And I think that what we were thinking of is we're trying to answer these questions, but we are going to need to drill down if any of these parcels are going to be converted to residential in the future. We're going to want to know, like, what does that density look like, and like how to be able to answer
Yeah.
the questions. I mean, for people, like for some of these, if you have to do your own on-site wastewater, that's a big part of what this is going to cost. And so, we can't ignore these pieces. And I know you're not saying you want to ignore it, but I guess I don't know how to do a middle ground of detail, really. And that's why you got a more
Yeah.
detailed document. And I think that it's an investment in the future, because if down the line, the town has had interest in thinking about, you have a housing production plan, we have all these other goals. And so if we're going to make a recommended change, if the town is going to recommend a change down the line, there's going to need to be a lot of community buy-in and discussion and understanding. What does that mean? What does it look like? And I think this is an early step in getting that information for people to have something to react to and understand, what could be possible.
Yes, yes to everything. I think one of the things I'm hearing is that I don't think we didn't do a good job of communicating to the staff the level of detail that we've already thought through in our modeling, which is things like what is the wastewater, is there wastewater capacity and how does that impact the value of the land? What are the demolition costs? What does it mean to go to net zero? So we've done a lot of that from thinking already. And
Okay.
what we had put together was these are the missing pieces that we need help with. So, so sometimes I think we're reinventing the wheel in two different places when we had done a lot of that thinking ourselves, and the modeling that I had done had already included a lot of that information, a lot of those assumptions, and I was simply looking for help with some of the missing pieces. So I think we've got done pretty good today as far as plugging some of those holes.
Yeah, and let me quote what people say about modeling, whether it's scientific or otherwise.
Yeah, go ahead.
All models are wrong, but most are useful, right?
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
modeling is. They're almost by definition, they're wrong because they have to have certain assumptions. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
let's not torture the model to death so we can't get it done, but let's recognize that they're useful. And they're useful. But Mary, before you leave here, we
Yeah.
have the issue on the agenda about the report. And we're not
Oh,
going
yeah.
to
Okay. Go
we're
ahead.
not going to get deeply into
Alan's
it.
got his hand up. Paul, I don't know if you want to.
What's that?
Alan's got his hand up.
Yeah, very
Oh,
quickly, Paul, just for the
yeah.
group, I'm listening the best I can. One thing the community is going to need and demand is what are the assumptions? What are the disclaimers? So it's clear. And really, what I'm a little concerned about, Mary, you just kind of touched on it, is who's making what decisions and what are their credentials? I'm very unsure I understand that. And sometimes when we say, can staff provide a number? Someone else is providing values. As a community, there's going to be pushback going, well, who's coming to this? And I've learned over time, staff doesn't have a lot of credibility, not because we aren't professionals, but usually you need an external voice with experience and knowledge. Russ is bringing skill set, but he can't sit up in a public meeting and say these are my numbers. And I just don't know how we're going to package it, but that's a concern I just want to raise because it's really important, some of these assumptions that are being sort of discussed and who's credentialed to actually make these recommendations. Just a concern, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
I have
I
that
think
same concern. I don't feel like I'm credentialed to be making all these decisions. I mean, I live here, but I have that concern. I share it.
recommendations, that's different from decisions,
Yeah.
right? Decisions will be made by others, but the select board or decisions will be made by the town. At some point, they're going to, at a special town meeting in town, the town's gonna have to approve this. And by that time, we're gonna have to have this buttoned down pretty well. But I'm not terribly obsessed with the details at this point because we want to move forward with, all these options. I think that it's the same for the other work streams, the other groups as well. The recommendation can be based on the best information we have, but it's not going to nail it down to the point where we can vouch for it at a public hearing or town meeting.
That's
Not
the
yet.
disclaimer I'm talking about that needs
Yep.
to be in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
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 Good point.
So the report, one thing on the report is I'm just thinking at some point our subcommittee has to come up with a recommendation, right? Um, that things flow from the recommendation. So the input to the recommendation is the modeling and other thing. I want to put something up here which revisits it's related to the report. So Judith had something similar in her presentation. And don't worry about the scoring on the right. We have to figure out, but an easy way of coming up with the recommendations is we have to look at these. These are our 5 options, right? And the report's gonna have to cover these options, why they were selected. And these are the criteria that originally was in that giant matrix that I put together, but I packaged it together into operational savings, revenue potential. These may not be the final categories, but we have to come up with an overall recommendation based on these considerations here. Some are quite quantitative, 1 and 2 are quite quantitative, and the other ones are qualitative. So the reason why I put this up, in order to move forward towards the report, we're going to have to deliberate on the recommendation. And so I'm just wondering we've talked about some of the information we need, data needs, at least on item 2 here, which I'll call the revenue potential. I think we have the information we need on the operational costs, right? Spent a lot of time in that. Russ gave a lot of input. I think he needs to do a final QA input. We have the operational information. We do need building costs up here, right? Because these are new buildings. So there's some holes in here. But I just put this up for us to kind of think about in terms of our report writing. Not that this is an outline for the report,
I,
but
I,
this is.
I
Go
have
ahead.
I have 2 questions, Paul. Okay. The first question is this, I am assuming this is in addition to the slide we discussed last week, which we showed the pros and the cons.
Yes. Those
Okay,
are pro.
great,
This
great,
is sort of in
good.
the
Okay.
sequence of the report, we would evaluate the pros and cons, and then this would
And
be our
then move to this one. Great. I like
this
that.
would
Okay.
this would be the final thing, which would lead to a recommendation based on
Okay.
some
Okay.
scoring yet to be determined. Whether it's
Well,
scoring or ranking, I'm not
yeah,
sure.
I know something about that because I did that when I was in consulting earlier, and it's a
Yeah.
score and a ranking exercise that it would actually be fun for us to do, where you look at the evaluation criteria and you say, out of these 7, which is the most important, and you give that a higher number than another criteria. So say you see that revenue potential is the most important, you would give that a higher number than something like I don't know, flexibility or number 6. And then you take that number and you multiply it against the other. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a, it's an
I call that
interactive,
I call
that'd
that
be
a weight.
fun.
It's called a weight.
The
It's a
way,
weighting factor. What's more important?
exactly. We could do that. And I think it would be useful and it would be fun. And I would like to see that in our report.
So, we could spend time on the report outline. I think, Mary, you said you were thinking about that, and Judith has one for the public safety group, and I think that's a good starting point. But I think early in January, which is probably our next meeting, we're going to have to kind of come to grips with, okay,
Yeah.
how does this come together? And granted, our first meeting in January, we're not going to have all these holes filled, uh, but you know,
I
we should
think
strive. We should strive to that. So that I think this should be um, this is a precursor. This and the other matrix are a precursor for writing a report. So before we actually,
can I ask before the January meeting, who's responsible for filling this grid in?
we're going to do it as a team.
In
Um,
at our January meeting or prior to January?
well, we should discuss that. I mean, it may take. I think all of us should think about this beforehand, but I think we need to do this at a
I think
public meeting.
it's up to me to fill in rows 1 and 2 because those are dollars.
We can't
right?
really work as a team prior to the meeting, right? So I feel like because we would be a quorum of the subcommittee if we're working on.
Right. I was saying we could each individually do it, but I think Mary's right. I think she
Yeah.
has her
I have
modeling.
one and 2, right?
You have 1 and 2. The question is, are these ranked or are they scored? And
Both. Well, okay, I'm trying to remember how we did this because it's been years since I've done this with a group of people. But like I said, under the first column, we would say to ourselves, assume you had $100 and you want to appropriate that among these 6, 7, which is most important? So you'd give that 25, and then the next and you're constrained with the $100. So you're trying to rank these as far as which is the most important thing to our decision or our recommendation. Forget the word decision. Which of these is most important? And then you look at the first option under the next row, the status quo. Does that meet that operational savings? And you multiply it and you get a total score for option 1. Then you get a total score for option 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And that way it helps you to kind of rank these based on how each of them is meeting the criteria that you've determined is more or less important relative to the other criteria. So, it would be an exercise that we would need to do, and if someone, it would, I'll try to. I used to do this all the time, and I can remember how to facilitate this. If this is something, I think this would be very helpful to help us prioritize our final recommendations.
yeah, and maybe I'm thinking maybe there's another row because capital, now that we're building new buildings, I want capital invest, you know,
Well,
revenue potential. Do we need another line? Where do the capital costs?
okay, I would almost say like net outflows, net inflows, but let me give that some thought.
Yeah,
In the
give us some
slide,
thought.
yeah, in the slide we had the other day, we had 3 categories, not just 2. So we had
Yeah.
cash in, cash out, and the net. And we
Okay.
had
Well, I'll send this to Shannon and to send it to you guys. But and the reason I put this up, I'm thinking we're in mid-December, and you know, I'm always thinking about deadlines and deliverables in projects, right?
that's good. That's good. Yeah.
So how do we
Okay.
work back? How do we work backwards from the end of January with the
What's our
knowledge
next,
of,
when's
yeah.
our next meeting?
Well, we got to discuss that. It's I think I assume we're not having another meeting before the end of the we could, but
Absolutely not.
not great day.
Sorry.
Okay,
Before the end of the
good.
year? No. Sorry.
I like absolutely not. Love it. Okay. So 3 weeks from today is the 7th.
I can do the 7th.
So again, the 7th is a huge day of hearings and everything else like that. I can do the 7th.
You
I guess
can?
I can do the 7th if it's at 10.
Okay,
I
great.
can do the 7th, but I guess, when I look at this matrix, I guess my biggest concern is I think that I mean, and this is just me speaking for myself, the financial piece is the most important one. I mean, all I hear about is the financial crisis in the town and how much everything's costing. Like that has got to get the most weight.
I think I'm pretty sure we're jumping ahead a
We're
little bit.
all in agreement of that,
I think
but so I'm
so.
just the waiting. I'm just not sure we're ready for the waiting.
The weighting for those 2 or 3 categories that are dollars, right, will be the highest. And the others are going to be, if I were to say I had $100 to appropriate among these, I'd probably give, 35, 35, and then piddly to the rest. But anyway, we could talk about that. I think you're right. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and whether the others are ranked or we just have pluses and minuses, or maybe we just rank the others as opposed to score them. But let's think about it, and that's why I put this up. As opposed to going through an outline today, Mary, I think we can
That's good.
think about that.
Yeah.
But I think this is going. We have to
Good.
figure out where we're going, and then we'll figure out how to get there. And
Okay.
this is where we're going. And
So
yes, the other matrix, which I'll send out again, is the pros and cons matrix, which is sort of the narrative behind it, right?
So
Remember,
should we assume that we'll actually work on, populating this on our next meeting, which I think we're zeroing in on January 7th?
I feel like that's a long meeting, but I think that's the date. And I think, yes, I think this is what we need to tackle. Does Tracy, you agree?
I agree. I agree. And I guess, I, I just want to say this before Mary leaves. I just want to, give my tremendous appreciation to the town employees and the school employees because we are asking a lot from both at the same time. We're one committee of the land use working group. There are 3 different committees, and then there's the total committee and this chair. So I just want to recognize the amount of data we're asking for and the time that they're spending on this. Um, and I just felt like today is the appropriate time to say that. So thank you.
Well, I think we'll be saying that again and again.
Okay, good, good.
I agree. So anything more on so I guess eventually we'll have to divvy up the report writing and come up with an outline, but
Yeah.
I personally am not worried about that right now.
I think
I'm more
Judith has
worried.
that too, though, right? Judith has that. Like
What?
she has a template for our report writing.
She does.
Well, she has an outline, which
Yeah.
was pretty much public safety related, but 80-90% of that is useful for what we have, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alan.
Oh, real quickly, your matrix there, it might be helpful if you clarify what is in each bin. And that's, those might even be chapters, where you can, provide detail. The roll up is the matrix, so people can look at it. But how did you get there? I think it's important when you have your conversation about how it's weighted, but what's actually included in that. And I think if you could do that between now and your next meeting, so you can kind of agree to, okay, these are the factors that go into it. Because I'm not sure if you're all on the same page or not, is what went into each of those bins. And it might be helpful to just, make sure you're all on the same page, and any document that's shared, people are going to look at that weighting table pretty significantly, I imagine. Just a thought.
Yeah.
No, very good thought. And I think that if we can write a report, I have to think about doing this outline versus these cells in the matrix of these rows. But I think it would make for good template for reports so we could fill in the detail. So I think early in January, first 2 meetings, we're going to have to kind of converge on the recommendations and on the pros and cons and get all the narrative. So then the report writing would be easy from that point.
Yeah.
Mary, just the
Yeah.
modeling that you have to leave, the modeling that you're doing, are you okay with any major gaps in your modeling right now? I mean,
I don't know, Paul. I've got, I'll have to get back to it. I put it aside for a while. I'll get
yeah.
back to it. And if I've got something that, yeah, there are some holes, but are they important holes? Are they material? And then I might have to reach out for more information, and I will.
And
So,
on the new building financial assumptions, I think we have as much as, unless that's changed, we should check with Judith, but
well,
we
actually, I'm hoping you'll tell me the total space now that you've got from Tracy
yeah,
right. So I'm waiting for you for that. What is the total space we need? And then so yeah, I might need some more data, and I'll reach out through Shannon.
yeah. Oh, and Shannon, you sent me the space matrix with a council on aging information filled in, but I need numbers. Um, for example, I know that Dan needs more space than he has right now. So somebody needs to give me that more space thing, whether it's for kitchen space or program space for council on aging. That's a missing piece right now. Because
Okay,
what you,
I
because what,
I
yeah.
had Jess fill it out and then she asked me to send it to Dan and Lee to make sure that they didn't have things to add and they didn't add anything, but maybe they didn't realize that you're looking for specific numbers. But I feel like for some of them, they might not know what the numbers are.
Well, they know what they have right now, and so they could use a percentage increase, however they want to do it. I mean, I'm assuming they need more space, so it's far better for them to estimate that need than us. And so with that information and with Tracy's information that she just showed, I'll be able to add up all of the office space and program space and come up and compare that with existing buildings, new buildings, make sure we have that in our new building cost estimate, um, as far as square footage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'll
Paul,
Yeah. Mary.
I gotta go. So I just want to thank everybody. I guess I'm waiting for some information, moving and FP&E costs, space costs from you, Paul. I think Megan's going to help me understand the value of the Church Street property. And there was one other thing that I forget. But anyway, good. Once I get that info, I'll be able to hopefully fill in the rows in that evaluation matrix that you presented. So thank you.
Okay.
Mary.
I'll
So
be,
we got next meeting on January 7th, and that's
yep, 10
okay.
o'clock. Is it?
Yeah, we'll have to figure out, is that going to be an hour and a half meeting, or do we need, not that we have more time, but well, we'll have to get it done.
Yeah, yeah.
We can try and do it in an hour and a half, and if we extend, we extend.
Yeah. Well, I'll send out those matrices so you can start thinking about it.
Excellent.
Important those two.
Okay.
So thank you, Mary. So as far as
Thank you. I'll see you later.
so as far as the agenda, we've covered up and down. We've covered uh, Megan's scope. We've kind of tabled the report outline and writing assignments, but we've sort of discussed where we need to start thinking about to write the report.
Mhm.
A list of data and space needs. I think we had a rapid 78 RPM discussion about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, really, the outline and the writing assignments, I mean, because now we're not going to discuss that till January 7th. Is that what we're talking about?
I think in the meantime, one of us, Mary or I, will take a crack at taking Judith's outline and making it sort of municipal subcommittee specific, which I go as far as we can, so we can at least we'll have
Right.
that to discuss as well. So,
Okay.
I don't know how long the writing's going to take, but I'm not going to worry about that right now.
Hmm.
Okay, I guess we've gone through the agenda.
Yeah, I think so.
Any further comments from staff, public, anyone? Sven, any comments? Are we,
Just also before we adjourn, just to understand, is town staff working in between the holiday or not? Just in case people have data requests, like to not send them maybe?
I think Public Works will be continuing to work intermittently. I mean, it's just
Okay.
checking
I
email.
thought you're not blowing snow during the holidays.
No, I know you're working, but like, I don't like from our committee perspective, I just want to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Like if people are taking time off, not to be throwing requests,
Yeah, I don't want to
Because
speak
the
for.
schools are, I mean, I'll just say like the schools are really shut down for the holiday break.
Yeah, I don't know if with the individual staff, but I think there'll be coverage of some sort. And if there isn't, you'll get a response. But
Yeah.
and I do think Megan sort of pulling. We need to start working on, just to be clear, the procurement of these services. Anytime we talk procurement, it's a time. We're not private sector. We call it's going to be finalize it, post it, get quotes. So we got to start that fairly soon if we're going to meet even February, March deadline. So this is where we got to keep this moving. So we will.
Okay. With that, I think meeting is adjourned. Everybody, happy holidays.